whatever you experience in your psychedelic experience, it's you. It's not some external force that's suddenly in you, it's you. And so what are you going to do with that? How are you really going to integrate that knowledge, feelings, insights that you've gained in that one session? That's when the integration starts.
Does it change the person that I am?
The things you see, experienced, and felt cannot be unseen anymore or unfelt. Everything transforms. Your perception of fear or your perception of your friends or the beauty of nature has all changed. You can be 100% assured that the medicine is going to give you what you need. Not necessarily what you want, but what you need will come up.
Does it also show me my core wounds?
How much you are in sync with your authentic self.
Am I then still in charge? Or is it basically free fall?
The objective is to completely let go.
Welcome to Real, Raw and Authentic. Today I'm in Amsterdam for a new episode with the founder of Magnolia. Magnolia is a psychedelic retreat here in the Netherlands, and I'm sitting here with Ingmar de Gooijer. Here, thank you so much, Ingmar, for being here. So nice to have you.
Thank you for having me, Caroline. It's really great to be here.
Ingmar, there is so many things that I want to ask you, but first of all, I want to say this episode is for everyone who struggles with trauma, everyone who struggles with depression and their mental health, and they feel like they need something more. And I think this is maybe a good starting point because there's this hot topic, psychedelics, out there. And my first question is, what is psychedelics?
What are psychedelics? Yeah, it's a great question. So there are a lot of different kind of psychedelics. The ones that we work with at Magnolia is psilocybin. That's one of the psychedelics. And we also work with ketamine, which is also seen as a psychedelic. And then there are a lot of other ones, for instance, like ayahuasca or iboga. And yeah, what psychedelics in essence do is they take you to a different state of consciousness, an altered state of consciousness. And in that state of consciousness, you have the opportunity to dive deep inside yourself. And so you are going to experience yourself from a different point of view, a different perspective. And that can be very worthwhile for a lot of people if done in the right setting and with the right preparation, et cetera. But I'm sure we're going to talk about that. Mm-hmm. So that's what it is in essence. I mean, some people see it as drugs. In the Netherlands, we have a word for drugs. It's called sedation resources. It's called verdovende middelen in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And psychedelics don't sedate you. They actually open you up. So it's really something completely different than drugs that sedate you. These are things that are going to open you up to yourself if done properly.
Mm-hmm. Now we're in the Netherlands, obviously,
yes.
But my question is, what's legal and what's not legal?
Yes, so in the Netherlands, and that's very unique in the world,
Mm-hmm.
that the truffles, which contain psilocybin, they're legal in the Netherlands. They're a food product. They're regulated as a food product. And so that's the reason that we are allowed to work with healthcare professionals and psychiatrists and psychologists with psilocybin-containing truffles and help people to do these programs with us.
Can you share a little bit more about yourself, Ingmar? How did you fall into it and what's your role at Magnolia, at your retreat?
Yes, so I founded Magnolia together with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
She used to be an orthopedic trauma surgeon in New York and then kind of re-educated herself to become a general practitioner. Mm-hmm. And she runs the medical side of Magnolia. Myself, my background is more in business, in healthcare, but more from the business point of view. And yeah, I noticed, I'm now 51 years old, that I was probably around 30, 33, and noticed that I was just stuck in life. And I already had done a lot of therapy, a lot of talk therapy, but that just didn't bring me far enough. I still was single and thought, why am I still drinking so much and still using some drugs? And am I not in a relationship that's worthwhile or valuable? And so I turned the ship around. And then in that process of really diving into yourself, I then also experienced psychedelics that were moderated, facilitated by professionals. And that really changed my life view, my own self-love. And I've already tried a lot of psychedelics since I was a kid. So I was 17, lived in the US, did a lot of LSD, but it was always more from a recreational point of view, mm-hmm. or just trying to understand consciousness and never really using it as a tool to heal yourself. And so at some point, I had my own experiences. I met my wife. And then, the universe kind of just brought this together, and people asked increasingly, can you help us? Can you help me? Can you do these journeys? And so then we decided, okay, if we're going to do this together with my wife, let's then do it very professionally. And let's really show the world that you can actually use these psychedelics as a medicine to heal yourself if you take care of a variety of conditions that we've all were able to create at Magnolia. So we'll probably talk about that more. So it's all legal. We have doctors and psychologists working with us, also just very experienced facilitators, because not only people with mental conditions or mental challenges come to us, also very often business people or artists or actors that are just stuck in kind of their innovation creative process and need to also dive deep into themselves to see what they want. They also come to Magnolia. So it's a broad spectrum of clients that we work with. And for the ketamine, we're really a official mental healthcare institution. We have the permits for that. So that's why we're allowed to work with ketamine. And for the truffle part, we are what's called in the Netherlands an alternative healthcare provider, where we're allowed to work with doctors and psychologists, et cetera, to work with the truffles, which contain psilocybin. And then we also work with just the actors that don't have the need for psychologists or medical staff, but do want a very experienced facilitator that can help them dive deep into themselves. And that's what we do. We only do it one-on-one. So it's not a retreat program in the sense that people come together and you have a weekend together. No, it's really only one-on-one, very private, very secluded in nature. That's what it is.
Wow. I have so many questions now. The mental healthcare sort of, or the facilitators, let's say, are they specifically trained, or do you have certain courses on how they can be supportive in this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we really believe in is that people can only heal themselves, which means that we can facilitate the program and the process, but they need to do it themselves. And so the traditional role of psychologists or psychiatrists is maybe I'm going to help you and you're going to listen to me because I know what you need, kind of, right? And it's a little bit black-white as I put it now, but that's kind of the rules. And with us, it's kind of the other way around. We believe that the client or the patient knows what he or she needs, and we're going to help them to access that. And what are we trying to access then? Their own self-healing capabilities. Everybody has that. Very often people think, oh, I have a wound on my skin and it heals automatically. I don't do anything for that. You have that same innate power for your mental points of view as well. So you can also help yourself, fix or solve your mental challenges. But you got to access that innate inner healing intelligence. And that's what we do at Magnolia, so that when clients walk out of our center, when they've done the programs, that they know, I have done this really by myself. It was all me that did it. I saw myself. And now I also know how to move forward because it was my own idea what I need to do now. And of course, we facilitate that and we have questions and but that's the premise. So, and that's a little bit different than what you might see at normal mental health care institutions, where you very often see that people come in there with maybe a victim identity, where we really focus on the survivor in the identity. So I'm a survivor and now I'm going to move forward, versus I'm a victim and you still maybe blame others or don't take responsibility or see the things that are actually beautiful, what might lead you to becoming even more in touch with your authentic self, as we call it.
That's a beautiful message. I like that. The survivor mentality. But if someone, and that's a typical, let's say, trauma response, particularly if you haven't done any or haven't had any support, then you're often stuck in that victim mentality. It feels also very real for you. Is that then the person that could also come to your retreat and you would first have a session with them? Or how would that look like to change them into that survivor mentality?
Yeah. So doing psychedelics or being open to even try that means that you are open to really dive very deep into your own unconscious system, in your own system. And having the courage to even do that is per definition already a survivor mentality. So if somebody says, I'm not sure if I want to dive deep inside me, then we don't go there because it's big, intense, and beautiful, but can also be challenging. So you
Mhm.
really want the innate drive to do this. And if you have that drive to do this, you're already beyond the victim mentality because then you want to move forward.
I see. Otherwise, you're not ready.
Yeah, because you don't want to do this if you don't really want to see the depth of your own psyche and your own unconscious system. Then it just doesn't work. And it become, yeah, no, then we say,
Mhm.
no, don't do it. So anybody that wants to ever try psychedelics, be sure that you really want to dive into yourself and make sure that you do it in a safe way with the
Yeah.
right setting and the facilitation, etc.
You're saying safe way. That's such an important thing because I know there are a lot of sort of, let's say, retreats out there. They do it in a group setting. You said you're doing it very different in a one-on-one setting. Is that providing also more safety automatically?
Well, I mean, we kind of guarantee the safety because we have a very, call it tight process. So when people come to us, there's first just an introduction to see what's up. Do you really want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And we ask a couple of questions to make sure that we have, that you're not, that you never had a psychotic episode or that you don't have a personality disorder. Those are kind of really red
Mm-hmm.
flags. But after that, we're going to screen you. And either if you go into the medical route with either ketamine or psilocybin, you have a talk with a psychiatrist and we screen you to make sure you are ready and you can cope with this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't need the psychiatric screening, but you'll still be screened, but then it's through a questionnaire and our conversations with you. So we know, okay, at least from a medical point of view, you're safe to go ahead. And that's, of course,
Mm.
very critical. And then the second step is then you start having a preparatory talks about, okay, what is it that you're looking into? What is it? What are your challenges? And how do psychedelics work? So how can you cope with maybe a challenging experience during your psychedelic journey? How can you work around that? How can you be able to move through those things? We all discuss that on forehand before you take the psychedelic journey, as we call it. And then during the experience itself, there's always somebody next to you one-on-one during the whole
Mm.
journey. So if anything comes up that might be challenging, there's somebody next to you that knows how this works, has done this many times themselves, and can help you move through the challenging parts. Then after that journey, that's when the real work begins, actually, because then you've experienced a lot of things. You've seen your authentic self. You kind of know what your challenges are. You might have been able to let go of certain things. But then you come back in the normal state of consciousness, and then your environment hasn't changed per se. You have changed, but your environment hasn't. And then how are you going to navigate your new in this environment that hasn't changed? And some people realize the job doesn't fly for me, really is not in line with my authentic self, or my relationship doesn't work, or I really need to change
Mm.
certain parts of my relationship. Or, I mean, it can be so broad, but things, then change. And how are you going to navigate that change in your life? And that's what we help you with in the integration process. And all these things combined kind of guarantee you full safety.
That sounds beautiful, very powerful, but also very transformative.
Yes.
But actually, and that's maybe also something that I immediately think of. Does it change the person that I am?
Well, that depends how much you are in sync with your authentic self, as we call it.
Mm-hmm.
And the authentic self is kind of that part in you in which there are no conditionings around it. There are no defense mechanisms, no anxiety. It's just really the true you. If you are already reasonably in touch with that, then this journey will not change you completely or very much, because you already know that there's a deep self-love and that you are allowed to be here, etc. But if you're very away from that, if you still are very much in a traumatic state of mind, or you still haven't found self-love, then the transformation is just bizarre. And you see
Mm-hmm.
people after one journey, just a complete different way how their facial expressions are and how their face looks. Their eyes are then more radiant again. And so it can be completely transformative, or a little bit. It really depends where you stand. But for sure, you will experience something, if this is the first time that you've done psychedelics, that is definitely transforming.
Wow. And that can happen through that one time experience.
Yes, so we use a safe high dose, as we call it, for the psilocybin containing truffles. We use the
Mm-hmm.
same dose that we're using in clinical trials for a variety of challenges. And that's a journey, we call it a journey of approximately between 4 and 7 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot happens in that 7 hours of time. And the things you see, experienced, and felt cannot be unseen anymore or unfelt. So you've seen that. So some people that have never experienced self-love and that experience self-love in the 7 hour journey, yeah, they come out of there knowing that they have self-love. So they cannot unsee that or unfeel that. It's there. Then the question is, after the journey, how am I going to integrate that? Because if you just think, oh, that was it, and I'm going to just move back into life, then it fades away. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, if you then are actively working on that, and there are a variety of things that people can do, yeah, then you keep that feeling of self-love alive, and you will see that, yeah, everything transforms. Your perception of fear or your perception of your friends or the beauty of nature has all changed. And so, yeah, you can't unsee that.
No, because you felt it.
Yeah, you felt
Yeah.
it, and yeah. So, and that's the power of psychedelics, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
beyond the cognitive process of only talking and understanding, because most people that come with us are, of course, intelligent people, most of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they understand why they have their issues. They rationally understand it, but they can't fix it, and they can talk forever. But yeah, but by talking only gets you that far, and psychedelics get you to that other level that gives you the opportunity to really change the view that you have on yourself and the environment. It's kind of this just new record that you've been stuck into now suddenly goes on, and you get a new opportunity to really create your own narrative, just who you really are.
Mm-hmm.
You are not the person with trauma. No, you're somebody that has gone beyond the trauma, has integrated it, processed it and you move on. So yeah, it's very powerful.
That's incredible. Powerful. But you said they're red flags. So it's personality disorder. And if you had psychosis before, are there other red flags of like, this is not for people who have certain conditions?
Yeah, I mean, the psychosis and the personality disorders are kind of the biggest ones.
Mm-hmm.
We have, of course, a lot of clients or patients that have a big list of medications. And so we really want to check that that doesn't interact with it. But it's a very safe compound, psilocybin. So, I mean, it's been used as long as man lives. It's available in every continent in the world. And yeah, it's not a new compound. So we know that it's a really safe compound. But of course, you want to make sure that certain interactions, that medications that they might use, or sometimes we have people. Our oldest person that we facilitated was 87 years old. So
Wow.
you want to make sure that they're also ready for that, or people that are the end of life and have a very big fear for end of life. With maybe certain cancer stages of treatment, yeah, we want to make sure that they're medically okay, fit to do a journey.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we all check. And yeah, I mean, but in principle, also ketamine and psilocybin are very safe compounds. With ketamine, it's a little bit different because there is a small addiction risk, and you really also want to know how the patient, how they are already now standing in their life. So when they do this, that they have the support system around them. So that's kind of stuff that we all check also with their therapists, that they know what they're going to do, so that everything is really ready for them to start this journey of healing.
So what's the green flags? Let's say, who is it for? Let's focus on the.
Yeah, so for who it's really for, it's with people that are stuck with something. It could be a trauma, or just in a burnout, or in a depression, or just saying, I don't know, it just doesn't fly. I can't have, joy in life anymore. I'm not depressed, but I'm also stuck. Those are all clients and patients that come with us for the psilocybin containing journeys. If you talk about the ketamine part, the Dutch government is very clear on that. You have to be labeled, and we don't necessarily believe in all the labels, but that's the label that we have to use, by treatment-resistant depression, which means you've tried already a variety of antidepressants, therapy, and you're still stuck with the gloomy view on life. So it's kind of a last resort. And those are the folks that come with us to do the ketamine program.
And how does the ketamine program look like? I only know it as a sort of anesthetic or anesthesia kind of element. I had one time a ketamine trip in the Netherlands, but not because I wanted it, because I had an injury and nothing worked. Morphines didn't work, and they couldn't transport me in the ambulance car after a broken shoulder. And then they gave me ketamine. And I felt like zoomed out like a video game into space
Yeah.
and going through different levels, but it was maybe like I don't know, felt seconds, but maybe it was like a 10-minute thing.
Yeah.
Is that really what people experience, or is it used totally different in the way you work with ketamine?
Yeah. It's, and I won't try to make it a very technical thing, but there are different forms of ketamine. So there's this official drug that's been registered for depression, which uses S-ketamine. But the original form of ketamine is called racemic ketamine. And if you look at the original ketamine, that if you do that on a certain dose, you don't only have antidepressant effects, but you also get in an altered state of consciousness. And we believe that that altered state of consciousness is part of the journey, part of the wisdom to go inside and see what's up with you. The S-ketamine that's on the market as a drug, registered drug, that kind of took away the psychedelic effects because they saw that as adverse effects. But we see that as the part that actually will help you heal yourself. So we use the racemic version of ketamine, and the program that we have, we tailor it per client, but on average, you see they'll have 6 treatments with ketamine, but they'll have about 16, 17, 18 therapeutic sessions around that. So it starts with a psychiatric interview, a psychological interview, then you have your preparatory calls, meetings with your psychologist, so you're really ready for everything. You have your intentions set, you know how it's going to work, and then you go through 6 sessions with ketamine. Every time with your psychologist, that prepares you and integrates the experience. And then after the first, third, and 6th session, you also have a talk with the psychiatrist to make sure that you're grounding and that you're integrating the stuff. And then after, on average, 6 sessions, you see that people, they've remarkably moved forward. And we have one patient testimonial on our website that she says, I stopped my antidepressants very quickly during the first couple of sessions, and after that I'm able to be in touch with my feelings, and I now understand why I've always been depressed my whole life. So she experienced something that she now was able to integrate, a feeling that she was never able to touch on through all the cognitive therapy sessions that she had, was not able to get to that point. And that's very liberating, of course. And then when you continue to integrate that, then you can really move forward with your life again.
I hear you when you say, Ingmar, you emphasize a lot also on the integration part. And I think that's important because there's so much information out there, and people who then sometimes, and I get it, sometimes we would like to have the shortcut in things. Is the ketamine or the psychedelic sort of basically both of the treatments, are they shortcuts in some ways, or do I still need to continue do the work in some ways?
Yeah, no, that's very valid that you ask that. No, the work starts after the psychedelic session. And we don't see a psychedelic session, a journey, be it psilocybin or ketamine, as a silver bullet to suddenly you're healed. So it's part of the journey towards healing, but it can be a very important part. Like, some people don't need it; they're fine with just talk therapy. But for a lot of people, the talking doesn't go deep enough, and they miss the feeling, the connection to whatever. Then the psychedelic journey can help you access those feelings and show you things, who you really are deep inside. But then the work starts, because then you've seen things about yourself. You know things now about yourself that are true, because whatever you experience in your psychedelic experience, it's you. It's not some external force that's suddenly in you. It's you. And so what are you going to do with that? How are you really going to integrate that knowledge, feelings, insights that you've gained in that one session or a couple of sessions? That's when the integration starts. And maybe you need to then continue with breath work on a regular basis. Maybe you need to start going more towards meditation. Maybe you need to be much more open in conversations with your partner about your feelings. Maybe you need to change. I don't know. There could be a variety of things, but that's when the journey starts, really.
So basically it's opening up new ways of living, the way you describe it.
Yeah, new ways of living, and a new ways of viewing yourself, and the new ways of viewing the environment. I mean, as you know, for some people, when one of their parents passed away, the one person says, I'm so grateful for the time that I've had. And I know I'm very sad, but
Yeah.
I'm very happy that we've had these times together. And for the other person, it's a nightmare. It's a trauma. It'll never be good again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a perception. It's how you have created your own narrative about yourself, which decides how you look at the external world. Yeah, that changes in a psychedelic experience. So you have the opportunity to rewrite your narrative to who you really are deep inside and how you look at the world and yourself from a more compassionate self-love point of view very often. But then, yeah, that's what you want to hold on to a certain extent. And of course, we never say just hold on to everything because you got to let it go and be open to whatever comes. But that self-love and that way of viewing reality, that you are allowed to be here, that everything is supposed to be the way it is, and that you can handle everything. That then needs to be continued. And some people can do that, as I said, through meditation, breathwork exercises, maybe go back to therapy or continue your therapy, deepen your therapy, whatever works for you. But this is not just a silver bullet and voila, we're there.
But what I like is when you describe it is that felt experience, because in my classical work as a psychologist, I love to bring in the somatic parts and bring people to smaller that eventually accumulate to bigger felt experiences of who they were, maybe also before everything happened, the traumas, the emotional wounds, to connect also with the authentic self. But that's also what basically the journey can do for you as well, to create a deep felt experience that you generally know that this is who you are.
Exactly. So it's really an experiential experience consisting of feelings, thoughts, emotions, images. It's bizarre what you all go through, but it's not on the cognitive level, because pretty much a psychedelic just goes through your cognition and then goes to a deeper part of yourself where the brain is pretty much, is now on a break. And what then comes up is, it's not cognitive. And so people that are very cognitive oriented, that are very focused on control, for instance, they can have a little bit more difficulty getting into this other states of consciousness because, you need to let go. And this medicine will bring you to another state, and it will, it's mandatory that you let go. And if you don't let go, it becomes kind of what they then call a bad trip, for instance. That doesn't work then. So that's why you need to be very much prepared and open, etc., what we talked about earlier.
Is there, for example, if there is, because I think that's such an important one, bad trip, people have that fear, of course, that they would go on a bad trip.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I'm, let's say, a very much head-based overthinker, sometimes I'm saying it just as an example, for example, avoidant people who have that attachment wound are very much trying to stay in control, and that goes hand in hand with overthinking. I find it always a safety net for people who've been through a lot of traumatic emotional wounds in their life, that they become overthinker. It becomes also their sort of strong savior, because you become intelligent, maybe a working kind of bee, but it also blocks you.
Absolutely.
So how can I prepare? Maybe that I know now. I have the self-awareness. Oops, this is who I am, and there's nothing wrong with it. This is what trauma and the wounds have created in you. But what can I do so that I actually benefit from a psychedelic sort of journey?
So, I mean, the first insight you need is you need to be aware of the fact that you're not completely what you are currently, so that there's a larger part inside of you that is much larger than the cognitive restraints that you've given yourself to just cope with life. Because in the end, it's just a defense mechanism or a survivor mechanism. So if you realize that this only gets me so far, because it does only get you so far, because this whole emotional thing that you have inside of you, your heart space, energy, whatever you want to call it, if you're not accessing that, then your life is not yet to the fullest. And at some point, it's going to knock on the door, and then you're going to say, all right, what am I going to do with this? So first, it's the awareness. But if you have the awareness, like, okay, I want to go to that part of myself, that's when we, of course, help you with how are you going to then be able to let go. So these preparatory talks that we have before the psychedelic experience are all about how can you do that. And one of the easiest things is, of course, we say there's one mantra that you continuously need to repeat yourself is yes to everything. Whatever you see, say yes. Yes, 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 yes. And if it's still very intense, we help you with breathing through the experience. And sometimes people are open that they want to have their hand held or they want to have a quick conversation or whatever. And that's why we believe in the one-on-one setting, because there's no counter transference. If you're in a group, then maybe you'll pick up feelings or sounds from other people in a group. And if you're very much into your own process and you don't want that. So in the one-on-one setting, we know how we can get you through the very cognitive control mindset, not only through preparation, but also when you do the medicine. And if you want to go to your deeper self, you will definitely go there with the right preparatory, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
What's the most, let's say, transformative that you've witnessed or personally experienced? Whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a list too large to talk about, and sometimes it's also almost like you think it's magic or can't be true fairy tales almost. But for instance, on the ketamine side of things, we've had people that already signed their euthanasia statement, which is allowed in the Netherlands. So they already were ready, to die, to say it very bluntly. And they tried ketamine as a last resort, like maybe I do have a reason to be here. And they kind of retracted their euthanasia request and now are back on track in their life. And it's within this specific example, it's of a 26-year-old girl that is now back on track and went to Paris on her own. And otherwise she would have been dead. So that's just bizarre and amazing how profound the transformation can be. And on the psilocybin part of things, we've had also very people that were end of life that are not afraid of death anymore and are able to be in touch with their feelings and their family and move forward. We've had people, very old people, that were never in touch with their feelings. That when we always ask the question on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you stand on self-love? And sometimes people say, I only have a 2. Or a 1, like they never experienced self-love. And then suddenly through this journey, they were able to tap in that part of themselves and were able to acknowledge and accept the self-love. Then everything changes. But it's also too bizarre. We've had 2 weeks ago, we had a person with MS in a wheelchair that really could not move her own body. And after this was her second journey, and after the first journey, she already felt a lot better mentally. And after her second journey, she was able to now get in her bed by herself out of her wheelchair. That was never, ever possible. And you think, I can't, most people just say, you're just bullshitting me, right? This can't be true. And I can't explain it either. And it's not like we do wiki-washy stuff. It's just, if you're open to really healing yourself and you're open to get away of all those blockages, yes, a lot of bizarre things can happen. And we see people that were so extremely depressed, didn't want to live anymore. They take a psilocybin journey, and then their experience is, for instance, from one that we had last week, I'll just take the one recent ones, that she said, and this is a lady in her 30s, and she said, I went into this other state of consciousness. I saw my grandmother, who I never met, before, but she told me things about myself, my family, guided me through this journey. And I felt so much love and relief. And I understand now so much things. And now I know I'm worthwhile and living is worthwhile again. And I'm going to move forward again. How are you going to explain this, right? She was in a journey and saw her grandmother that guided her through her whole journey, that gave her all the self-love, confidence, and compassion for everything that ever happened to her, and now is on track again. And these are not exceptional stories. It's very profound. But again, you need to have this certain mindset already going into the journey. And we, of course, make sure that you get into that mindset, getting into this journey. And we make sure that the rooms that we have are really specifically made for these kind of journeys with a view on nature. And you're only one-on-one. You have a safety net around you. If you want to do the medical program, there's always a physician on site. So if you feel safe and you feel comfortable with your facilitator, that you really know I can trust him or her, and I'm ready to take a deep dive, all these things are so important to enter the journey, because then you can maximize what happens there. And that's so different than you just do it in a group retreat and you had a little bit of preparation and then, after that was it. And then you move on. It's completely different. And that's how we roll.
Wow. but I hear the passion inside of you because you felt it yourself.
Yeah, it's just bizarre what we see
Mm-hmm.
happening. And yeah, we started 1.5 years ago. So it's, of course, still pretty difficult for us also, because we're pioneering and we're the only institution in Europe that works with medical professionals and psilocybin in the way that we do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not allowed anywhere else in Europe. There are a few states in the US where you can do it now, but pretty much in the whole world it's not available. So people are looking at us, and of course, there's a different price tag involved. That if you do it one-on-one with all these professionals versus a group retreat, in the woods in the Netherlands,
Mm-hmm.
and just making people aware of this, yeah, takes time. We were on a documentary on Dutch TV, so we now see that people are acknowledging what we're doing, and now I'm here able with you, which I'm very
Mm-hmm.
thankful for, to talk about this. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that helps us a lot as well because yeah, it's new.
It's new, and that's why I think it's so important. And I'm grateful that you are here because shedding some light on it also, because I think there's still so much that people don't know. I also don't know. I'm researching a lot about it, but it's more how can it help me also in 2 years, in 10 years, maybe? I mean, this sounds, when you describe it, like a profound experience. That's a one time thing, but sometimes these one time felt experiences change you. Basically, a little bit like trauma in a positive way.
Sure.
It's a, oof, I had a
Sure.
positive felt experience,
Yes.
tapped in with myself. But how can I make sure I don't lose it, that feeling, that
Yeah.
I really continue on my path moving forward, like you said?
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely the trick. And I mean, like, we work with psilocybin and ketamine. There's also a psychedelic, which is also called a drug, but MDMA, that was almost approved in the US for
Yeah.
PTSS. I mean, that's also a profound medicine that will get you in a kind of an altered state, but you can still talk. So then you can actually talk through your trauma from a point of view of very loving and trust versus anxiety and fear, and that also heals people. Psilocybin works different because you're gone for 6 hours. You have the preparatory and integration, but in that 6 hours, you also already integrate things that you've experienced to move forward. But how do you keep it alive for everybody? That's different. And I couldn't give you a one straight answer for that. We see people that come a couple times back for an individual journey. Some people say, I just want to do breath work, or it really depends.
Mm-hmm.
And if people are already in therapy or they already have a therapist, we already touch base with that therapist on forehand, and they can continue this discussion with their therapist. The difficulty is, of course, somewhat that if therapists don't know how psychedelics work, then it's difficult to have this talking partner.
Yeah.
But that's why then some clients come with us and they have bi-weekly meetings with the facilitator to just continue to talk about, where do I stand in my life now? What does this mean? And really important to note is that we don't tell anybody what to do. All we do is ask questions for the people to realize themselves what they need to do. Because we believe that the innate healing intelligence is with the client itself. Activation has happened through the psychedelic journey. And then we continue to ask and probe questions for themselves to decide what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if you take this kind of approach, then people very quickly kind of get a hold of how they can ask themselves what they need to do. Maybe they need us for maybe 8 more sessions that we can probe and ask, but at some point they know, okay, I can do this myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's the whole point. It's not a good business model because they don't come back then, but it's why we started Magnolia.
Wow. But for me as a psychologist, let's say I would have someone that comes to you, how would I how would you educate psychologists, therapists globally, let's say, so that we can do a job to support each other? Because that's what you're also saying, that there is, the work needs to continue, but also with the awareness that sometimes maybe, I don't like the word patient, I don't like the client work, or I don't have not found the right word
Sure.
yet, but that someone came to you and had the experience. How can I help that journey, boost that the best possible way as a therapist?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, there are a lot of courses already out there in the Netherlands and abroad that help specifically therapists, psychiatrists, healthcare professionals to understand what it does. We do believe that, and this is maybe not very diplomatic to say, but if one professor from Czechia called Stan Graf, he's a very old man
Mhm.
now, but very wise man from my point of view. I think he's treated thousands of people with psychedelics. And he wrote this book, The Future of Psychology, I think it's called, in which he clearly explains what kind of altered states are there. You know, there are three big domains. We can talk about that if relevant, but
Mhm.
more importantly, when he talks about how do you facilitate this, he pretty much very bluntly says, yeah, just forget about everything you learned as a psychologist, psychiatrist, because this is a different ballgame. This is really about being able to resonate, be in touch with the client, knowing that the client already knows what he or she needs, which means everything you learned of when I hear this, I need to do that. And when I hear to do, no,
Mhm.
it's being in the moment, trusting yourself and the client. You already have that rapport with each other, and you just see what happens in the moment, which is already an interaction from the client itself. And that's the way forward.
Mhm. So being an observer.
Well, yeah, an observer, but being very much in sync observer, and not thinking in, oh, I've learned this, or this is my frame, or this is how it works. No, let go of everything, because everybody heals in a different way, and everybody
Mhm.
has different experiences and journeys. And so that's how we approach it. And of course, these are all trained professionals that we work with that have their degrees in what they've done. But when they work at Magnolia, they know they've also had to let everything go and be in the moment with the client. And that's where the therapy is. And we believe that every therapist or facilitator that works with us, you can only guide and help your client as far as that you've gone yourself.
Mhm.
So if you haven't looked at all your dark parts or challenges or traumas, whatever, and you haven't fixed them or looked at them deeply, then yeah, then only so far you can bring your own clients. And we want to bring our clients all the way through it, which
Mhm.
means that yeah, all of the folks that work with us have had to had done a lot of work on themselves. So multiple psychedelic journeys, but also multiple sessions of therapy to really know I've also looked at my very complicated dark experiences parts, and I know how to overcome that.
Mhm.
And of course nobody's 100% clean or healed. You're always on a journey to become a better version of yourself. But yeah, you need to have gone very far, because yeah, then we know you can also bring your clients that far.
How often can I do, let's say, a journey? Because you said multiple. Is it can something that people can do regularly?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can do definitely multiple journeys. I mean, a lot of facilitators have worked with us. They've done multiple ayahuasca experiences, either in the Amazon or here in the Netherlands or in different places. They've done definitely multiple psilocybin sessions. They've probably done sessions with MDMA to look at their emotional parts themselves, their child parts maybe. And yeah, I've tried all psychedelics myself, including iboga, which is really a very tough medicine, which puts you on a heart monitor and an IV drip, and you're gone for 18 hours. But
What
yeah,
is it for?
I mean, iboga is used very often to treat addiction. So people that are, for instance, addicted to opioids or fentanyl, very tough addictions.
Mhm.
With one session of iboga, you see, I think, is more than 90% are off their addiction by one session, which doesn't mean that everything is then Humpty Dumpty and happy in their lives, but they're off that stuff.
Mhm.
But it's a very tough drug. They call it, you kind of have two sides of psychedelics, and maybe this is a bit spiritual wishy-washy, but you have the feminine side of psychedelics, and the kind of the grandmother is called ayahuasca of psychedelics, and the
Mhm.
grandfather of psychedelics on the male side kind of is iboga. Those are very intense, tough medicines. And if there's one thing above that all, which is called the God molecule, and that's 5-MeO-DMT, as they call it. You vape that, you smoke that. Yeah, and the program, for instance, for iboga, for very complex trauma, also PTSS, a lot of veterans go through these programs.
Mhm.
Yeah, they take then, that's the program I went through as well. You take iboga on day one, which is 18 hours, 24 hours of intense, and they
Oh.
monitor you with a cardiologist, and it's all very
Mhm.
safe. And then afterwards, you get 5-MeO-DMT, and then you have kind of the very dark dark kind of energy release in the iboga, which is tough, but a lot comes out of them, and then you're completely, you're shaken up. You're like, whoa, what happened to me? And then they give you the 5-MeO-DMT that kind of gets you in this state of complete love, which is, you cannot explain what 5-MeO-DMT does, but it gets you in this so far state where everything is light and love. And those things combined really get people back on track. Both compounds are still illegal, but yeah, they're very powerful. So yeah.
Wow. But is there a risk that I harm myself health-wise, or that I get, let's say, addicted to, let's say, one of those treatments?
Yeah, so psilocybin is completely non-addictive. That's already been proven multiple times. And when you've done it one time on a high dose, it's not that you think, let's do this tomorrow again, because it's quite tough. And the same counts for ayahuasca, for instance. Iboga for sure is not addicted, but ketamine has shown to be, for some people, addicted to ketamine. But it's all about the intention of going to ketamine, and the intention why you want to do ketamine, and also how did you get it, and was it part of therapy, and what is really, how did this all work with you as a program? We haven't seen anybody that gotten addicted to ketamine, but and we've done more than 300 treatments now. But yeah, there is a certain risk. But most psychedelics are non-addictive, because you just don't want to be in that altered, tough state. It's
Yeah, exactly. But is there sort of, let's say I do it one time, can that be enough then, that I continue my life and do other things, like you said, breath work?
Definitely.
And I don't need to revisit it? Or is it sort of, is there a recommended plan that it says once a year it's recommended to do another, let's say, journey?
It's so different. It's so different. Some people really come every year because there's always enough to look into, and they find it comfortable. We've had some very powerful businessmen from Asia that have come over for us 2 times and then now do it themselves. They take less high dose, but do them themselves in a nice setting, and they continue their own journey in that. So that's really difficult to say on forehand. It all depends. How deep do you want to go with yourself, and how much stuff is there to resolve? Yeah, for me, there was just a lot of stuff to resolve. So I needed to do it quite a couple of times with therapy, and I'm still continuing on that journey to a certain extent. But for everybody, that's different.
When you said did they take it, let's say, by themselves, is that then the things that in the Netherlands you can buy it, these small little packages where you have, yes, it's truffles there, that you then take yourself on a microdosing? Is it microdosing?
Yeah, I mean, microdosing is one thing. So we see quite a few clients, they use microdosing after one and a half week, 2 weeks after they had their intense journey. They kind of continue with microdosing, and that helps them out to get to a certain, different state of mind. And microdosing kind of, you should not just yes or no, barely notice that you took it in. That's why it's called microdosing. You shouldn't notice that you're in an altered state, because then it's not microdosing anymore. But you kind of just feel a little bit more at ease or less anxious. So some people use that. But when I talked about these business folks from Asia, they use a little bit higher dosages. And in the Netherlands, you can just buy 20-gram packets of truffles, and they then take 10 grams, for instance, and that will get you in a different state. But you're still then very cognitively aware. A lot of people take between 5 and 10 grams and then have a walk in nature with a dear friend, and then they can talk very openly about their feelings, and you can continue integration in that way. So it's very different for everybody.
I think that's also something that I think is very important that you mentioned that, because sometimes there's this, and I have that sort of like, am I then still in charge of my own body in some ways when I am, let's say, in a journey? Am I in quote unquote still control, or is it seen as basically free fall, and let's see where you land emotionally in some ways in your body, and where your mind takes you? Is that how does it look like? What happens inside of me?
Yeah. So if you really want to use it as a therapeutic tool, then obviously the objective is to completely let go. And so really let yourself fall in your body or wherever the medicine takes you. So some people, they shake a lot during their experience. Other people cry a lot. Other people have other emotional or physical experiences. Letting go is the whole point. And when do you allow yourself to let yourself go completely is when you feel safe and secure, and there's a setting that you know you can do it.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point to a certain extent. Now with truffles, even on a high dose, you can still go to the toilet yourself. The world will look distorted and you might see all these colors, but you can still move to the toilet and go back. We use headphones and eye shades so that you really can only go inside. Because very often, why do people use psychedelics recreationally? Yeah, because the world changes, right? And it's very interesting to see colors and different shapes of trees, and it's very external oriented, and it's just very interesting, and the thoughts that you have, and you can discuss that with everybody, and that's also very useful, I think, to a certain extent. But for us, it's really you go inside yourself, so you turn it around, so you don't look externally, you can only look internally. So that's why you have the eye shades on and specific music on headphones, that all you can encounter is yourself to the full extent possible. So you're completely gone with truffles, but you can still go to the toilet and you can take your eye shade off if you want to. For ketamine, it's different. That's really, you are in a dissociative state for 45 minutes. So you're really gone. But if the facilitator does touch you and you want, then it's still possible. But you can there be very, very deep and not being able to do anything, and just you're on the journey. But our program, of course, builds up to that point. We don't start you with that dose. Yeah. So you already know the first time is a lower dose. You get experience to what you can encounter. The second time, a little bit higher. And then by the third time you do it, then you're really at the state where you completely are in another state of consciousness.
And how does a bad trip look like? Let's go in the worst case scenario.
Yeah, so bad trips are really, if you take 5 things into consideration, then bad trips are, from our point of view, impossible. And it all has to do with, on the first hand, screening. So you don't have the psychosis, etc. The second thing is the preparation, that you really know what's up and how can I cope with that. The third thing is the facilitation. Who are you with? Do you trust them? Do you feel at ease? The fourth thing is the set and setting. So how does it look? I mean, it's very different if you're in a very crowded marketplace with all these people shouting and yelling versus that you're very serene, quiet. And also that's the setting. And the set is, of course, do you have the intention of activating your own inner healing intelligence, and therapeutically is that. And then the last thing is integration. Those 5 elements, if you take care of them, a bad trip won't happen. Because you're not going to get into psychosis if something is very powerful happening to you and you find it a little bit afraid. There's somebody next to you to guide you through it. And then when you maybe come home and you think, but what was it? And I'm really afraid of reliving whatever happened. Yeah, but you've already are in the integration process with your facilitator, so you can manage that also through. But if one of these things are lacking, then a bad trip can, of course, occur. And that has everything to do with that you're in a state of consciousness that is so fearful, and that triggers different defense mechanisms, and there's nobody there to help you. Then it becomes worse.
So if I'm already scared or have anxiety or the fear of a bad trip, plus I'm a very much, let's say, head-based overthinker, and I need that control, then it would be like, let's do something else first so that you can learn to let go, and then we could have the trip.
Yeah, I mean, we noticed that in our preparatory talks already, right? So if somebody really, really is very cognitively afraid, but really wants to do this, then they go with us and they take some breathing sessions with us first. And we have once a month sessions where we take a micro dose of truffles and then breathing for 1.5 hours. And that whole session is about 3 hours with a group of people. Yeah, it's just bizarre also what comes up there. But that's already then a first step for people to already access the altered state of consciousness, so they can easier let go. But you notice that in the conversations during the preparation, what the person needs.
That's why it's also so important, I think, that you have the experts in your practice clinic that know how to screen, right?
Exactly, that know how to screen and know how to exactly tune in with the person during the preparation. Does this person really need? Yeah, definitely.
Wow. Why do you think, and that's maybe a very personal but also professional question, do you think that retreats like yours, that the trauma healing, the healing of the mind is so at the forefront of everything? Where do you think that comes from?
Yeah, I mean, it was already very big in the 50s, right, in the US. I mean, LSD was very popular, and then it was just by the government. I think it was in Nixon time that said, we're going to just ban all these drugs because, people said, I don't want to go to war. I don't want to draft myself. And then it was just kind of shut down everything. There was also
Hmm.
a lot of research already done scientifically also with these compounds. That all stopped. Then in the, I think it was somewhere in the 80s, a few people were allowed to start these trials up again. And they saw remarkable results, of course. And you just see in the field of mental illnesses, there's an increase in people that are depressed. There's an increase in people that are anxious. There's an increase in, you probably know yourself why, social media, peer pressure, whatever, both
Hmm.
parents working, whatever. So the mental illness is becoming more and more problematic. And we don't have any medicines that help because, yeah, obviously antidepressants, yeah, you can have your own opinion about them, but they only suppress things. They don't really
Yeah.
heal anything. So there are also not really any compounds that can help you with for the last, I think, 20 years in the field of psychiatric. And yeah, we don't have all these therapists that can help you cognitively, but also cognitively gets you only so far. So you see everything is getting stuck. The whole, yeah, it's just the medical system is getting stuck with people that have all these mental illnesses, and we don't know how
Hmm.
to cope with them. So then the logical step would be, let's heal these people instead of treating them with only symptom relief, but really healing them. Yeah, and psychedelics are just an element of that healing process that's very
Hmm.
powerful. It's not a silver bullet, but it can be a part in that process of full healing, full recovery. And there are so many examples of people that have completely recovered with the help of psychedelics and a lot of other things in
Hmm.
that. So that's why now there's a lot of attention for it, because yeah, how else are we going to help these people?
Does it also show me? You said an intention beforehand, but
Yeah.
does it show me? You said self love, but does it also show me, let's say, my core wounds that have been created somewhere that also are linked to the way I see myself, that the way I believe that I am the person I'm anxious, let's say, as an example, or I'm always that sort of person, but it's actually a core wound of mine. Let's say I have the fear of abandonment, which
Yeah.
links immediately to failed relationships over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great question. And so how we look at it is, let me think again, because it's a great question. The client is going to go to their authentic self. That's what psychedelics do. And maybe you need 2 sessions for that, or 3, whatever, but you're going to get to that authentic self. And something is blocking that authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have your issues. Now, how those blockages are going to be released is different for every person.
Mm-hmm.
Some people indeed relive their traumatic experience that they have suppressed for a long period of time, and they need to have to go through it again, um, to have a different point of view how that happened, and by seeing them maybe as a survivor, or that they can let go of whatever it is. For other people that have already done a lot of therapy on that specific traumatic event, they don't necessarily need to go to that event anymore. That's kind of not the issue anymore. They couldn't access their self-love. So they then
Mm.
suddenly experience self-love. So it's for every person, it's so different what they feel and experience. But we believe that the intentions that you set for your journey, and we always have 3 intentions for everybody, that those intentions will come back in your journey. There are 2 schools of thought here in the world. One say, oh, you should have no intentions, just go into the medicine journey, and just
Mm-hmm.
whatever
Yeah.
comes up needs to come up. We believe in that as well. So whatever you need will come, not necessarily what you want, but what you need will come up. But we also see that the moment you say, I am going to do this, that's when the journey already starts. It's very bizarre to a certain extent, but it's 100% of all the folks that we work with. Once they say, I'm going to do this journey, things are changing in their lives. They already notice something, things, or they suddenly have this extra argument, or they suddenly have this or whatever, that they think, well, where did this all come from? And how we view it is just, you've told your own unconscious system that you are willing to openly and with compassion go on an exploration trip inside, and it's already starting to show you things. And that continues in the journey. And when you have these intentions, and we always have intentions that are formulated in the way like, show me, help me, teach me. So for instance, show me how I can be more in touch with my feelings, teach me how I can let go of this unresolved conflict, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But with those 3 intentions that the client or patient themselves finalize and really makes it their own, yeah, we see that almost all of their intentions come back in their journey. and not maybe specifically directly one-on-one, but during the integration talks, we see that they have very clear insights and now ways to move forward related to those
Hmm.
intentions. So we really believe in the power of intentions.
That's incredible. So the body and the mind basically show you what you are ready, but also what you would need to see in order to heal.
Yeah, I mean, the body and mind. Yeah, it's obviously, yeah, it's combined, right? You
Hmm.
can't really separate
No.
it, because we've also had people that had specific unexplainable conditions, and you have a special word for those. That after a couple journeys, kind of got rid of that, and we also don't know how that works. So, for instance, somebody with post-COVID did a journey and is gone from their symptoms. Yeah, this is and is one story, but her husband is also not going to come, and yeah, you just see that it happens. So then her view on this was, I was too much ingrained on the symptoms that I had that were fear-based by society about that I had post-COVID, and I heard it all around me, and I started believing it, and it was, whereas actually it wasn't that necessarily, and I was able to let go of all these feelings and fears and
Hmm.
thoughts and some other traumatic things in her life, and that kind of healed her. That's her philosophy, and we always believe that the client knows what is real. Yeah, we don't know that. Um, so that mind-body thing is completely connected. And yeah, once you say, I'm going to dive into my unconscious self, and you've planned the date, the journey has begun with everybody. It's just very awkward and bizarre, but to a certain extent also logical.
Hmm. But that's basically what I hear, and that's what it's my takeaway. It's like when you decide to do it, be ready to change the way, not just that you view yourself,
Yeah.
but also what you believe about yourself.
Yes, and what you believe of reality, and how you view God, or how you view life, or how you view rule, or because there are two basic emotions that of which all other emotions come from, and that's obviously on the one hand love, which is related to trust, and the other
Hmm.
one is fear, which is related to control. Um, yeah, those two things are going to start popping up, and yeah, in the end, when you go to your authentic self, you will notice that it is not fear based. It is really love based. And that means trust. And that means also the right to be and the right to live, and that you are worthy, and all those things. That's in the end what's in that authentic self. But for everybody, it's different, because the one resonates more with this in their authentic self. They want to be more playful. The other one wants to be more, I don't know, wants to be more open with their brain, whatever it
Hmm.
is. But yeah, without any conditionings around it, that's what you're going to encounter and see. And that's why we started Magnolia. We're of course very humble and excited if people can really live their life from their
Hmm.
authentic self. That's then, yeah, then you're there.
And have you seen people in the work that you're doing? Because trauma, or let's say the emotional wounds, sometimes also physical wounds, but let's say emotional wounds are the invisible wounds
Yeah,
that trauma
yeah,
creates, because
yeah.
people struggle with the
Of
word
course.
trauma
Yeah,
sometimes. It's very clear for someone who had
yeah.
an accident, for war veterans
Hmm.
who've been and seen terrible things happening. But if I had emotional wounds, and
Yeah,
sometimes that's the absence, the lack of
exactly,
things in our life,
exactly,
but it can also create these memory gaps that I see a lot of times people
exactly,
saying, I don't remember if I had
exactly.
trauma or what I
Yeah,
had. I just remember that I have huge chunks of memory gaps in my life.
yeah,
I personally sometimes myself, I'm like,
yeah,
okay, there are certain parts of my
yeah,
childhood that I don't remember
yeah,
because there was high stress,
yeah,
survival mode.
yeah.
Can it bring back memories that I need to see? Or what is your
Yes,
take on this?
100%. I mean, we've had a psychiatrist that has done two journeys with us, that had some issues himself. And his first journey was a complete um, movie oriented experience of his first 7 years. He just went through all the things in his first 7 years, where he lived, the people he met, the first time he was in love, how his parents were, all that stuff that he had blocked, all came back. And he then realized, shit, man, it wasn't that bad actually. It was actually quite nice. It was just the experience that I had then as a small kid, that you're, very stressed. But actually, now as an adult, I can look at that and no, it's actually quite well. And then the second journey was kind of a somewhat similar thing, but then he went through his middle ages, or not middle ages, teenage ages to becoming young adult, where he had a lot of issues with relationships and love and stuff. But he was all those came by, and he was able to also give them a place that or now in line with his authentic self. And yeah, he then moved forward. But that's him. Other people experience something completely different. But for sure, as you rightly say, very often trauma, you have a trauma with a big T and a small t. And it's also about things that you didn't get, that you didn't get the security, or you didn't get the love. And those are then the things that are going to come back in your journey. You can be 100% assured that the medicine is going to give you what you need. And what you need is then that inside feeling, belief, or recollection that is ready to be processed on the conscious state of being. So it's ready to be processed in your normal state of being. That's what you're going to experience. So you never have to be afraid that's something going to be larger than yourself, that you can't cope, because it's all you in the first place. It's only you that you experience. And the second part is that, so it's all you, and it can be larger than you, and it's ready for you to be processed in the normal state of consciousness. You can be 100% assured. And that's how we work with it. And that's how we then move through those things that you've experienced during the integration.
So there is no risk of being re-traumatized.
Well, there is always a risk of being re-traumatized if you don't do it in the setting that, I'm not saying that only Magnolia, there are enough places where you can do this probably with professional people, but if you really have these professional folks that know what they're doing and they've experienced it themselves and they know how to work with you. For instance, Dick Swartz, who wrote, who's the guy from IFS, Internal Family System, No Bad Parts, his book. He's done a lot with psychedelics. And one of the things that he said, which we have seen in our practice as well, is that sometimes this exile part of you, because he talks about exiles and about managers and firefighters as parts. If the exile part then suddenly comes into the open because the firefighters and the managers are now broken through, right? Psychedelics goes through all these conditionings, and this wounded part comes up. It can be very, very emotional, overwhelming, maybe even fearful. And then, so what are you going to do then? Don't then start sedating the patient and no, that's when you need to be able to be where the patient is and make sure that they are then come back to a point where they know, this is me, myself, you're safe, you're okay here. And you talk them through that so that when they get out of the journey, they've actually healed a certain point. Whereas when you put in the suppressants or the tranquilizers, that only makes it worse. Because then the exiled part, the fearful little child part, really will never come out again, or doesn't fear to come out again. But we know how to do that. And we've had those people that have, but these are very serious traumatized patients, right? They work with our ketamine treatments, like really, really severe, that went through their traumatic experience that they had suppressed. And I don't even want to go into details, like really, really bad experiences. And they came into that. But that's when we have a team that then knows how to work with these people to get them back to a state where they realize again they're safe. And after, when they're back into their, their normal state of consciousness and they're away from their trauma, they say, shit, man, this is such a relief. And I've never experienced this before, because now I can start giving it a place. It's not that they're healed then completely, but that's the start of the process of giving all those suppressed traumatic experiences a place. So sometimes you need to relive them again if you suppress them so much. And you need to then have people that know how to do that.
So if for anyone who's watching or listening right now, what would you tell them, sort of a small checklist to look out for if they, let's say, look, because there's a lot out there, right? Different retreats. What's a safe place? What's not? What's a green flag? What's a, let's say, red flag? In your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I truly believe that if people really listen to themselves and tune into themselves, they'll pretty quickly know if the person or the organization that they want to do this with flies or doesn't fly. But I also understand that sometimes people are not in contact with their feelings and they think, I just don't know, I just want to be sure. I mean, it's just very important that there's a preparatory and an integration part to it. It's very important that the facilitators are really experienced and know how to do this. And if you have a known traumatic history or with a certain mental illness or challenge, I would think twice by doing it with anybody else than really people like ourselves, because you just don't know what's going to come up. And if then there's just a facilitator that has done it a couple times themselves and thinks, oh, I'm going to change the world, and with the right intentions, right? But has never been able to facilitate these between brackets complicated clients, then it can only get worse. So yeah, just watch out and be very mindful and talk to the people that are actually going to facilitate you, and make sure that you feel safe and comfortable, and that it's
Mm-hmm.
also in the setting that you think I feel safe and comfortable. So if you feel safe and comfortable with 12 people on mattresses in a little tent somewhere, yeah, okay, if that's okay for you, then by all means go there. But if you think, yeah, but I'd rather do it smaller, or maybe only 4, or maybe only 1, yeah, then follow your heart and your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So again, trust your own
Yes,
instinct.
and be smart rationally, cognitively, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the credentials of the facilitator? Where is it done? With who are you going to do this? And what does it cost? And
Mm-hmm.
have they done it before? And yeah, just check that out.
Is it important also to build a short sort of rapport or connection, let's say, with the facilitator, the person that is going into the or it's guiding you through the journey?
We believe it's of paramount importance.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, if you do it with Magnolia, you've already seen your facilitator a couple times, and you've had intense, deep discussions with him already, and you know if you feel right or not. So we always ask also the folks that come with us, do you have a preference for a male or a female person? Because maybe some people, had traumatic experiences with males, they only want to have females. So that's already the first part. And if you go to a retreat with multiple people, very often you've not even seen your facilitator before. You just get some preparatory things the day before or on the morning. Yeah, we would not advise that. But I mean, if there's nothing wrong with you and you just want to check out an altered state of consciousness because you're interested in that, yeah, then also there's not a lot of harm to be done,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it really depends on where you stand and what you want to get out of it.
And how do you adjust the doses? Is there just a standardized kind of doses for everyone to take? Or is it, let's say, male, female, different body weight? Or is there certain ways to kind of know this?
Yeah, so for ketamine, it's all based on body weight,
Uh-huh.
and there's a specific formula for that. For the truffles, it's also similar to that, but with truffles, it's somewhat a little bit different. So what in the clinical trials have been used is called a safe high dose, which is 30 milligrams of psilocybin. We
Mm-hmm.
know in the truffles that we use, that approximately 1 gram of truffles has 1 milligram of psilocybin. So we know that if we give 30 grams of truffles for somebody with a body weight of 70 kilograms, that's kind of the safe high dose used in trials.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the variation comes with if have people used antidepressants because they work on the same receptors as psilocybin. So then you might need a higher dose because they might not be activated. With other people, depending on their microbiome, how does it integrate in the system? So after an hour, we always ask, do you want to go deeper or not? Or are you sufficiently deep in your journey? And then we can also, add truffles to the person if they think they can go deeper. So that really depends. But the basic thing is 30 milligrams of psilocybin, so 30 grams of
Mm-hmm.
truffles for 70 kilograms.
And you hear a lot, I think there's a lot of people, I heard this also, like, for example, on an ayahuasca trip,
Yeah.
or also sometimes on truffles,
Yeah.
that then there's the uncomfortable physical part that
Yeah.
they suddenly, let's say, vomit
Yeah.
or feel very sick
Yeah.
or it's totally spaced out. Is this something that is just a, let's say, side effect of the whole journey that happens to everyone, or is it individual, or is it preventable that this doesn't happen?
Yeah. So I think with ayahuasca, it's fair to say that probably more than 90% of everybody will start with vomiting, unless you do it with the maestro in the Amazon and he gives you different herbs to drink for, and then you already vomit before you do your ayahuasca trip. So,
Mm-hmm.
but for ayahuasca, it's quite normal to vomit. For truffles, the way we give truffles to clients is we have ginger tea. We have the truffles in one glass. We add the ginger tea, and then the truffle just drinks only the tea. And we notice two things. It's integrated more quickly in the body, and you don't throw up from it. Now, it depends per person. I don't think that truffles make you throw up so often, but you do see it if you just chew them and you take them the normal way. With the tea, I think we've now done more than 150 journeys. I think maybe 1 or 2 persons did have the need to throw up, of which one person was a very little bit that he threw up. And he said immediately when throwing up, this was something of my father that I had to release. Don't ask me to explain why, but he said, this is just a physical thing that needs to get out. It's not mine, and it's for my father. And the other person that had to throw up was because she had a very high medication list with a former addict. So there was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stuff that just needed to get out. And then we just give
Oh,
the
I see.
dose again. And then everything goes okay.
And why ginger tea? Is there
It's better
something?
for the stomach.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of relaxes the stomach.
So
Yeah.
it's not because it gets quicker in your system or
No, because
something.
of the tea, because of the you don't do it with 100 degrees of water because then the psilocybin doesn't work anymore. But I think anywhere between 70 and 85 degrees water to tea, then it comes perfectly in the tea. So it gives a relaxation for the stomach and goes a little bit quicker. And for people that can't take ginger tea, you can do also with lemon.
Mm-hmm.
That is even a much quicker uptake, but also a little bit less longer journey. So we prefer to use the ginger tea, but yeah, other people take it in chocolate, right? So
Okay.
yeah,
And is there a way of preparing your body beforehand, of like eating a certain way, avoiding certain things like alcohol? I don't know,
yeah,
to prepare.
no, it's a fair point. I mean, ideally, we always say drink as long as possible, no alcohol before the journey, and
Mm-hmm.
eat as healthy as possible, as long as possible before the journey. Because yeah, the more fit you are in your body, and yeah, the kind of more comfortable the journey will be.
Mm-hmm.
But if a person has such a busy schedule or doesn't really feel comfortable by not drinking these 2 glasses of wine every dinner evening, or then it's also okay. We really ask the person just tap in your body and try to be as relaxed and at ease as possible with yourself before you do the journey. And if that means you can have a good diet, then by all means do the diet. And we have,
Mm-hmm.
of course, a recommended diet. But if that's not possible, also don't worry. It's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just feel as comfortable as you can.
Okay. And is there, let's say, also preparation of lifestyle? Let's say, try to minimize the stress, do certain ways of
Yeah, it's the
quote
same
unquote
thing.
grounding
Yeah,
yourself?
that's it. It's the same as with the diet. We of course advise that, and
Mm-hmm.
we tell them we have a preparatory workbook, and we talk about all these things. But we also tell everybody, don't stress out. It's okay. The reason why you're probably doing this journey is because you couldn't do it, right? So
Yeah.
be relaxed. It'll be okay. And very often you see after the journey that they take that up much more easily.
And on your retreat, Magnolia, is it that people stay overnight or do they go and stay somewhere else?
Yeah, no, we only do one-on-one journeys. We have those rooms. They come in the morning, and for psilocybin, they come in the morning and they leave around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. Ketamine, those are 3-hour treatments, so they come and they go. But they don't stay over with us. We have a couple of hotels that we have good relationships with, where then people can relax, where we know the food is good and the ambiance is good,
Mm-hmm.
and then we bring them to the hotel and back for the integration the next session.
Mm.
Yeah. Those are for the
Mm-hmm.
foreign clients. I mean, the people from the Netherlands themselves, they get brought by their spouse or a
Mm-hmm.
friend, and they come the next morning.
And how do they feel after they've done the journey? Is there the night after?
Yeah, that's also it's for everybody very different. Like sometimes people experience a bit of a weird psilocybin experience, and they believe that they didn't get any insights from it on the day of the journey itself. Um, and they might have a bit of a restless evening because they're cognitively thinking about what was it and how come. And we always say, don't worry, it's going to be all right. And then the next day, when you talk about them in the integration process, they always get the insights, because it's bizarre. They weren't able to kind of match the things together, what they've seen, experienced, said themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that we are telling them what the experience was, but we just ask the questions for them to see what resonates. But other people are so relieved that they were able to let go of their fear, their anxiety, their trauma, that they sleep like a baby and are extremely relaxed. So it's really different for very people. We also had people that said, now I really want to have a very big meal because I feel great. And others say, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be,
So
have
it's
a
very
different diet.
individual.
Yeah, it's so individual.
But
Yeah.
would you say it's a bodily experience, the felt experience, and the mind is gonna catch up and they align then in the integration part?
Yeah, it's very difficult to say. I mean, I've had a man that was 78 years old, and his whole journey felt like he got beaten up on his heart. But that was because his whole life he was not in connection with his heart, and it just had to be kind of reopened, and it needed a very physical experience of 4 hours that he really felt very tired and exhausted about. Who has been hitting my heart for 4 hours?
Mm.
But The next day, he said, I can feel again. And he now has a relationship with a lady that he never experienced before. And he was able to now be in touch with his son again because he was able to be in touch with his heart again. So that was a very physical journey. But we've also had people that laid as a Buddha for 7 hours, felt completely at ease with their body and only experienced things in the mental realm. And some have a combination, very much shaking, crying, and also mental. So it just depends what you need. And some people need to release energy from their bodies, and that's what happens. And other people need to really experience profound feelings of love and joy in the heart, which of course also have a physical side to it, but they lay very still.
Hmm. Wow, it sounds very powerful, very unique also.
Yes, and it's been around for ages, right? I mean, so we are new in a sense that the way we do it with medical professionals and we're in the open and we say everything how we work, that's kind of new because we're unique in Europe and the world. But the medicine and the medicine work itself is as old as mankind. So in that sense, we're not new at all.
Projecting everything a little bit further, like 5 years from now, what would be your hopes for Magnolia, but also maybe for the treatments themselves?
Well, I really hope that, and this is that just a lot of more people have access to psychedelics and that they can access it in a safe way, in a really powerful way, in a valuable way. That's what we really hope for in the future. To take it even one step further, we would hope that these treatments or these programs would also be at some point reimbursed by healthcare insurers or by companies themselves as people have a burnout, because they can work very, very well in their recovery process. And then the trick is now, if you look at the medical world, they, of course, only will do something if it's scientifically proven, which means it has to be registered as a drug, which costs a lot of money to register a drug. And then it comes on the market. And then very often drug companies want to kind of make it a healthy or an extreme profit, whatever. And then it becomes, again, very expensive, whereas the psilocybin truffles that we use are very cheap. They cost nothing. And the ketamine that we use is a generic form of ketamine, which is very cheap, which makes it more accessible. But if you look at the medical world, they will expect all these trials, all these clinical scientific validations, which then becomes very expensive again, which then means, of course, then it's not as accessible to a lot of people. So I hope that we can find somewhat of a leeway in there. And we truly believe, and that's how Magnolia has been built up. On the one hand, we are, of course, very medically savvy and solid because we ensure safety, and we've read all the research reports of clinical trials, et cetera, about how we can work with this. But we also have a true big belief in the spiritual component of life. And we call it spiritual, but it can be whatever you want, because there's a lot of knowledge in the non-cognitive rational side of life and of being. And of course, the medical world is very oriented on that rational part of the brain, and it all has to be proven and grasped. But the things you experience in a psychedelic journey cannot be grasped, cannot be put into words. You can't hold on to it. And call it the spiritual dimension where you can heal yourself is just as important as that other part. So we've had people come by, they said, yeah, I had my ketamine treatment through an IV in a hospital setting with bright lights on top of me, with clients next to me without any therapy. I mean, yeah, of course it was a relief to a certain extent, but it didn't heal them. And then they kind of get it in a different setting where it's ingrained in also psychology, therapeutic sessions, and in a setting that works with only an injection. So it's not hospital at all, where they can feel at ease. Yeah, the results are just completely different. But that's not yet how the medical world necessarily is at this point in time. They're still very much on the rational side of things. And I hope that also opens up, that there's a little bit more room for the spiritual dimension of people themselves needing their own belief and stories to heal themselves.
And also building bridges between
Definitely, yeah,
different disciplines to work together.
100%.
Because in the end, it's all about healing, helping people to
Completely.
come back to themselves.
And believing that the person can heal themselves, that they have that innate power and intelligence already in them, and accessing that versus pushing your own beliefs or your own thoughts on them.
So it's empowering them.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is a total different felt experience and feels so much safer inside of yourself.
Yeah.
Once you deeply know, you can trust yourself.
I think almost all the people that come to us for the ketamine program say this is just so bizarre. I've never experienced having psychologists and psychiatrists work with me in a different way as kind of equals, and not by telling me what to do or how it works, but actually just working together, and that I can really tap into myself and be able to really get what I need. Yeah, that's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
And I know there are a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists out there that already do it, but also a lot that don't.
It's a bit game changer
Yeah.
now in the whole treatment, I
Yeah,
think.
definitely.
That we have to look at things differently,
I think so.
but always with the focus on what's best for people.
Yeah. And the client already knows
Mhm.
it, him or herself. They know, they deeply already know. And just unlocking that power, intelligence, that's what we try to do.
Wonderful. Ingmar, thank you so much. I always have a question for everyone who comes on my
Okay,
podcast.
cool.
You can answer it as long as short as you like, and you can also go where you would like. But
Okay.
you have to think of traveling back to your past self, anywhere in your life.
Okay.
And what would you tell yourself? Maybe a piece of advice. What would you tell yourself?
It's interesting that you said that. I had just a session this morning with a couple of people that we focus on that kind of. And what I notice with myself is that if I look back at my life, the only thing that I should have said more often to me is that I am loved, that I am worthy, and that you're allowed to be here.
That's a beautiful message. With that, thank you so much for being on my podcast, for sharing about Magnolia, the work, the pioneer work that you're doing. And I'm curious, and I will hopefully and maybe definitely have you soon again on my podcast, but I'm curious how this work continues.
No, thank you so much, and thank you for the great conversation. Very much
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it. Thank you.
This was an empowering and very insightful podcast episode with Ingmar about trauma healing. Well, this was not just about trauma. This is about the invisible wounds, finding your authentic self, and maybe a new way of working with and within yourself. If you liked this podcast episode, let me know in the comments what you liked, but please also don't forget to subscribe to support me to make more episodes that actually are here to help you on your healing journey, to give you insightful stories or interesting experts like Ingmar today, who share about what's actually out there so that you can heal and help yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you in the next episode. Let's see where that's gonna be.